Good evening, everyone. This meeting will now come to order. This is the meeting of the Indian Trail Board of Adjustment and Planning. My name is Cynthia Wiley, and I'm the chair of the board. Would the board members please go around and state their names for the record?
Kim Sandoval.
Meg Fielding.
Cynthia Wiley.
Ken Curtis.
Sidney Sandy.
David Patigimas.
Jennifer Marr.
We can confirm that we do have a quorum and therefore can proceed with the meeting. This results in our meeting starting with the oath of office for our new PCB board member, Jennifer Maher. Did I say that right? I don't know. Marr, thank you. Jennifer Marr.
I, Jennifer Marr, do solemnly affirm that I will support and maintain the Constitution and laws of the United States, the Constitution and laws of North Carolina, not inconsistent therewith, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of my office as a member of the Indian Trail Planning and Zoning Board of Alderman.
Thank you. Welcome, Jennifer. Next, may I have a motion to approve the minutes from our previous meeting on December 17th?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the minutes are approved. On to new business. Before I begin to hear our first case, I would like to briefly review how these hearings are conducted. This is not the hearing of Quasi. I'll wait on that until our next one. Sorry, go right ahead. We're going to review CZ 2024-0136 Rocky River and Poplin Commercial. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Josue Peña, one of the town planners for the town of Indian Trail. I'm going to try and be brief and to the point because I know it's a cold evening and we want to be home soon to our warm homes. All right, there we go. All right, so Rocky River and Poplin Commercial is the name for this conditional zoning request. This is connected to an annexation request. And so what we're considering tonight is the assignment of a zoning designation. Let's talk about the zoning request. It involves 4 parcels. Total size is approximately 3.5 acres. I know that the staff report said approximately 4 acres. That was based on Union County GIS, but after we got a hold of a survey, that was adjusted 3.5. These properties are at the intersection of North Rocky River Road and Poplin Road. Current zoning for these parcels is Union County RA 40, that stands for Residential Agriculture Low Density. Like I said, this is tied to Annexation 171. The hearing for that annexation request will be heard by Town Council on February 11th. Now, the requested zoning is Conditional Zoning Neighborhood Business District. And the requested condition with that is to allow a restaurant with drive-through service. The intent of the annexation and zoning request is to develop a commercial project. It will expand and enhance the planned Southgate mixed-use development. Regardless of whether the project is developed as a standalone project or incorporated into Southgate, the applicant has said that the project will adhere to the same design guidelines and standards that apply to Southgate. So that will mean that whatever's developed there will look the same or similar to Southgate. The applicant is Maribel Investments, represented by Terry N. Taylor, the president, and the property owners are 3 families, the Green family, the Green Morris family, and the Sutton family. So if we now focus our attention on the subject properties themselves, what's the character and the surrounding area, the subject properties are or host residential structures, residences that are currently occupied. They're shown on the map, highlighted in red border. But around it, we have a lot of rural single-family homes and a lot of open space. However, there's also high-density residential neighborhoods. You can see these in the map highlighted in this magenta border. Towards the west, you have Fieldstone Farm, Annandale. Those are existing residential neighborhoods. Southgate is the project that is adjacent to the subject properties, and that's under construction. But then towards the southeast, in the Monroe town limits or city limits, you have Calico Ridge, Stallings Brook, Poplin Grove, and Glendalough. And you also have Poplin and Porter Ridge Public Schools. So that gives us an idea of what's there. What's not there? There are no existing commercial developments in the area. The nearest commercial is a Citgo gas station at the corner of Unionville and Rocky River Road. It's about a 2-minute drive from the subject properties. To also get a sense of how far away is the nearest commercial village or commercial corridor, it's a 10-minute drive from the subject properties to Highway 74, a 4-minute drive to the Monroe Expressway. So that gives us an idea of the surrounding area. A couple of street view photos for you. Here's the front of the property. You can see the residences all share a driveway or drive aisle. Here's another angle. By the way, this is as if you were standing on Poplin Road. And so now you're looking at the roundabout that's at the corner of the subject properties. Across the street, you have that open space that we talked about, a lot of rural properties, has a rural character in the area. Still, if we were standing on Poplin Road, this is looking at the subject property, and this is to give us a sense of how close these properties are to the Southgate area. So the red line represents an estimate of where that property line would be. And so you can see to the left the subject property, to the right you have the Southgate project that is planned to be there. Now if we were standing on North Rocky River Road, we can see the closest residential structure or residential property right across the street. And then if we were to travel further south on Rocky River Road, we would see that open space again that characterizes the area. Now, if we look at the current zoning makeup, the map shows a lot of parcels in white. All these parcels or these areas belong to Union County, and they're zoned RA 40, residential agricultural low density. But if you look at the southwest, you see a group of parcels that are conditionally zoned, and it represents Southgate project. You have a variety of, it's a mixed-use development, so you have a mixture of zoning. But what's important for our discussion today is the light blue shaded area, the parcel that is adjacent to the subject properties, and these are zoned NBD, CZNBD, Neighborhood Business District. This area is intended to be or planned to be that commercial village for Southgate. And when we talk about introducing commercial into an area that doesn't have any, NBD is the least intensive commercial district. So if someone were to start to introduce commercial into an area, that is the best way to do it. Start with the least intensive commercial use or district. Now, if we look at the recommendations from the comprehensive plan for the town of Indian Trail, we see that the subject properties, you see them here on the future land use map highlighted in this bright hot pink shade. That represents the recommendation for mixed use. The subject properties are also contained within a neighborhood services activity center, represented by the green circle that you see in the map. The purpose of an activity center is to provide regular services within a 5-minute drive of a population. Earlier, we pointed out that it's a 10-minute drive for the residents in this area and for the subject property to reach Highway 74. So they're outside that goal. But having a neighborhood services activity center there puts them within that 5-minute drive. And also the purpose of these activity centers, or this particular type of activity center, the neighborhood services, is also to limit commercial to a small-scale, low-intensity uses. We often talk about the sub-regional activity center, the Sun Valley Activity Center. That is the largest scale of activity center that the comp plan identifies. This would be the smallest activity center that the comp plan identifies. Now here's a rendering of the Southgate project. What we want to pay attention to is the top right corner where you see the intersection of Poplar Road and Rocky River Road. You see a shape in yellow. That represents the subject properties. And directly adjacent to it, where you see the buildings in red, is that concept of a village for the Southgate. That project is under construction. The residential phases are currently under construction. The village center is still in concept phase. So we haven't received a sketch plan or a site plan for it. But this concept gives us an idea of how it will more so be designed. You have the larger buildings in the center, and along the perimeter, you're going to have these smaller buildings. So the development that will go in the subject properties will mimic that pattern of development. We had 2 community meetings. They were both held on January 6, 2025. We had 4 residents in attendance. And some of the concerns or comments that were heard were about the absence of a concept plan, traffic impacts, vehicle access points off the main roads, and the acquisition of land for right-of-way widening. Staff was able to provide them with good answers, and we had good meetings with the community. Now, this board is not required to adopt a consistency statement, but we wanted to share with you what we will be sharing with town council. Staff is of the opinion that this request is consistent with the comp plan, and it's reasonable in the public interest, as it promotes goals of the comprehensive plan. You have those in your report, but in summary, they promote goal number 1 for community engagement, goals number 1 and 4 in land use and housing, and goal number 1 for economic development. Now, the proposed conditions with this CZ request, the first one's kind of a standard condition. The development will comply with all other applicable requirements from the town of Indian Trail. The second one is the condition that the applicant requested is to allow a restaurant with drive-through services. This also will allow other by right uses for NBD or the Neighborhood Services Activity Center. Conditions number 3, 4, 5, and 6 are conditions that staff has recommended, and these are to ensure that the development follows the guidelines of Southgate. For example, condition number 3 is providing screening for the drive-through facilities to the largest extent possible. Condition number 4 talks about those design guidelines, that whether this development is developed with Southgate or by itself, it's still going to follow those guidelines, and we even reference the ordinance and CZ number for those guidelines. Condition number 5 speaks about vehicle access points, because that was a concern for the community. We asked, or we inserted that the developer make reasonable efforts to make sure that any vehicle access points are from the internal, that are coming from the Southgate commercial and not from the main roads. But again, they have to make the reasonable effort it's not a guarantee that that will happen. But it's the applicant's intent and desire to do it that way. And the last condition relates to buffering. So whatever buffering requirement Southgate has, the applicant is aware that they're going to follow that same standard. So in summary, the requested zoning designation is CZNBD. The intent is commercial development that will complement Southgate. The request complements the adjacent zoning and is consistent with the comp plan recommendations. And the NBD designation, the fact that it's within an activity center, and the conditions that we're recommending will soften the impact of future development. We have the requested action before you is motion to recommend the approval as presented by staff. You could also recommend approval with revised conditions based on your thoughts and deliberation, or you could recommend to deny. And that's my presentation. I'm available for questions. The applicant is here if you have questions for him too.
Thank you very much.
Very good.
Do we have any questions from the board?
So the adjacent parcel that's already zoned CZ MBD, correct?
Yep.
So this is just fitting right into that, and that already has the conditions to allow drive-through restaurant with, it's already a part of that as well, correct?
Yes, so the adjacent parcel or area is already zoned CZ NBD, so allowing this or recommending that this be zoned NBD is pretty much just filling in that corner. And that commercial village already has its allowed uses also, and that includes drive-through.
Includes that, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do we have any public comments?
Yes, ma'am, I have one person signed up, Chris Dugan.
Okay. Chris?
Good evening. Chair, members of the board, my name is Chris Duggan. I represent Bernice Kimbrough, who owns the property just across the way. Could we put up the map so we can see there you go. You'll see Ms. Kimbrough's property. She represents her. She is the trustee of the Kimbrough Family Trust, owns the property just to the right of the red proposed rezoning. My clients want to express several concerns that they have regarding this request that's brought before this board. One of the concerns that they have is that there is no site plan. We don't know exactly what's going to go in. Hey, let us in. We're going to go and we're going to annex. Currently, it's in an unincorporated Union County. Let us in. We're going to go into this as a commercial district. We don't really have a site plan. My clients are concerned about the fact that we don't know really what the look or layout will be of this proposed development. Yes, we understand that they're going to mimic the conditions or mimic the aesthetics of the Southgate proposed. However, we don't know what's truly going in there. We don't know things such as grading, and there's a concern for my clients as to the grading and the concerns of water runoff from the site across the way. The site is elevated from my client's property, so they do have that concern. And there is the concern, and a lot of those concerns that were brought up by Mr. Penier was from my clients. They are concerned that the development would have a traffic impact just across the way from the proposed development, my client's property. They have a rental house on there. Just south of that rental house is a driveway that goes between Poplin Road and Rocky River. It's a driveway just for that house. However, there is a significant amount of cut-through that happens, and my clients wanted me to express their concern that that driveway will become a cut-through for any future development that ends up there. And I understand that my client's property is in unincorporated Union County, which is not governed by this board or the town of Indian Trail, but those concerns are still there. We have concerns, and I know that the applicant has said that they do not intend to have and have withdrawn any request for any kind of gas station. Gas pumps. If this board is inclined to approve the application, certainly we would like to have that as part of a condition, a stated condition in the application, that there will be no gas pumps, there will be no gas station that is there. And again, I understand that that's the intent of the applicant, has withdrawn any request to do that, but we just would like to make sure that that is stated in there. With that, my clients, again, are just concerned about the development that's happening around their properties. As you know, there's a lot of not in my backyards and types of development as communities grow. And we understand that, right? But they do have a concern. This is a longtime family property that has been there for many, many years, been agriculture for many, many years, and is quickly developing. We request that this board deny the application at this time until the applicant can come forward with a site plan to show this board what it truly intends to do with the property instead of just going into this NBD district. So the request of my client is to deny the application at this time. If the board is inclined to approve the application, that the condition that there is no gas pumps, no gas station be allowed there. Access points for this, it will be increased traffic. Yes, we have the circle that's there, but the increased traffic, stacking should be inside of Southgate for any of the restaurants or any of those types of things, and not on the roads of Poplin Road or Rocky River Road for stacking of any kind of drive-through businesses. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. I have a question. What is on the other side of, if this, or no, take it back to where you just were. Oh, okay, gotcha. This section right above the corner, on the other side, right about where the subject property, what is that?
Directly across the street,
Yeah, right there. What is that?
that's just open space.
Open space farmland.
Yep, that's what it is there.
So my question is, if the board were to approve this request, could we include in it a provision where the entrance to this area would come in from that section and not across the street from where the property owner's driveway is? Is that a reasonable?
Just quickly, I want to provide some history on this property that you're speaking of. This was a request that came before the board several years ago, maybe three or 4 years ago, for Atlee subdivision. They ended up withdrawing prior to council, if my memory serves me correct. But there is a chunk of commercial on this parcel as well. And I don't know if you wanted to take her question.
About access, I think I don't understand access coming through there. The concern was limiting access. The desired design is to have access through the Southgate Village, through the internal village.
That would be ideal.
That would be the ideal situation. Now, if that's not possible, those two roads, Poplin Road and Rocky River Road, are both managed by, oh, my time's up.
You may continue.
Those are both managed by NCDOT, so they would have the last say on where any entry points would be allowed to be. Now, based on what we know of what we've seen them approve in the past, they obviously will try to keep those entrances as far away as possible from that roundabout.
Okay. And then my understanding that the neighborhood business district, as it is, we cannot have any gas pumps or any, that's not part of the design of that particular zone. If this were to be approved,
Correct.
they cannot add that, a gas station or a gas
Correct.
pump in any way.
So I want to read what that condition would sound like or would read like. So for that, allowed uses, it would say restaurant with drive-through services is allowed on the subject property or properties in addition to the by right allowed uses for NBD. But then we add this extra line, other land uses are prohibited unless a CZ amendment petition is submitted for review and approval. So that takes care of that concern that gas stations, it's written in there, so it's not allowed without the applicant coming back
Good.
and getting approval from this board and town council.
Thank you.
And these concerns were raised at the public meeting, correct?
The community meeting,
And
yes.
It was addressed then, so would you share a little bit of how you addressed those at that time?
Sure. Here it is. That's right. Actually, let me go back to that slide. That'll remind me. Okay. So when they talked about vehicle access points off the main road, we kind of addressed gave the same answer that we gave you. When they talked about the acquisition of land for right-of-way widening, we assured them that any land that's acquired for that would come from the subject properties, not from neighboring properties. So that was a concern. Traffic impacts, we also highlighted that when this development is presented, again, with a site plan, they would be required to do a traffic impact analysis
Right.
at that time. So those are some of the answers. Oh, and
Grading?
grading, so all of that would be managed
Right.
in the subject properties. So none of it would trickle away from the property into adjacent properties.
But that's part of the site plan approval.
Right, all
process.
those concerns, all those details would be handled through a site plan review. Our engineering department would be looking at grading. Planning would be looking at stacking. I know that was a concern, stacking of drive-through. We have standards that make sure that none of that spills over to the main road.
Are there any other questions for the board?
So the South Gate Village we have, and then you said that the residential is already started. So they broke ground and they're going ahead with that.
They are beginning their work on the single-family phase, and I believe they're doing the townhomes phase. Those are the two phases that right now have started.
So in the village, has there been any mention of what's contemplated, restaurants, dry cleaners, or,
Not at this point.
okay, so it's an open book.
It's a concept. The original CZ agreement has more information about what are some of the allowed uses, has aesthetics, guidelines, things like that. But right now, it's just a concept. We don't have anything more concrete.
Thank you.
This shows where the house is.
Would anyone like to make a motion?
Motion to recommend approval of the conditional zoning case request ZZ 2024-0136, Rocky River and Poplin Commercial, as presented by staff.
Do I have a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
This motion passes. Thank you. All right, our next order of business is to hear our first case, which is going to be a quasi-judicial style hearing. And that means that this is like a court hearing. The state law sets specific procedures and rules concerning how this board must make its decision. These rules are different from other types of land use decisions like rezoning cases. The board's discretion is limited. The board, in this case, must base its decision upon competent, relevant, and substantial evidence in the record. A quasi-judicial decision is a decision constrained by the standards of the ordinance and based on the facts presented. Participation is limited. This meeting is open to the public. However, only parties with standing have rights to participate fully. Parties are limited to the applicant, the local government, and individuals who can show they will suffer special damages. Parties may present evidence, call witnesses, and make legal arguments. Other individuals may serve as witnesses when called by the board. General witness testimony is limited to facts, not opinions. Individuals providing expert opinion must be qualified experts and provide factual evidence upon which they base their expert opinions. Now let's continue our meeting. We will now open the hearing for our next case, which is PZB, VAR variance 2024-0129-215 Pickett Circle. Thank you.
Do we have to start with the swearing of the witnesses? So we'll start with that.
Thank you. We must first attend to the matter of board reclusals and disclosure of ex parte communication. Does any board member have any partiality towards this case to disclose and reclusal to offer? Okay. Does any board member have any ex parte communication to disclose that is related to this case, such as any site visits, conversations, or other communications?
I did a site drive-by.
I did a site drive-by as well.
As did I.
Does any party withstanding have any objections to the participation of any board member currently present? No? All right, we've heard the oath. We can now begin the hearing. Will the town staff please present this case?
Hello again. So this is variance 2024-0129, tied to or related to 215 Pickett Circle, and this is a variance request. The applicant is L&R Builders of North Carolina, LLC. They're also the property owner. The property, like we said already, 215 Pickett Circle, it's a .49 acre vacant lot. It's zoned SF1. The intent of the variance request is to obtain that variance or flexibility from the build-to line standard to be able to construct a single-family house. A little bit of history on the progress or how this case got to this point. The new home application was submitted November 14th, 2024. It was denied November 16th, 2024, and a variance application was submitted November 24th. So first, let's look at an aerial map to give you an idea of where this property is. It's in the Valley Estates subdivision. As you can see, the Valley Estates subdivision is mostly already developed, but there are a few parcels that are empty, vacant, and so the applicant is trying to develop one of these. And you can see it in the map highlighted in this red border. Here's a street view photo of the subject property. You can see that they've kind of started. What you can also see is the surrounding area, the left and right neighbors and those residences. This is the left side property. Here's a picture of the right side neighbors. These are the properties across the road. And then this extra photo focuses on the accessory structure that is on the left side. This has 80-foot front setback. I'm going to talk a little bit more about it, but just keep that fact in your mind. So when we got this application and we reviewed it, we noticed there was a conflict with our UDO. So the house footprint was proposed towards the rear with a proposed front setback of 80 feet. Well, the minimum front setback is 40 feet, and they're meeting that minimum standard. However, there is a standard in our UDO, code number 1310.030.c. And I won't read it, but basically it states that any new developments of a residential type within an existing neighborhood, the goal is to line them up, have them be in this consistent build-to line, and the rule is to look at the homes adjacent to it within 300 feet on each side, on the same side. So this map helps us see what the planning technicians reviewed. They took a snapshot of the building footprints. They drew a build-to line across the front of those structures. And so that is the goal, is to have new development be in line with that existing development. The front setback for these homes, the average is 45 feet. And again, the application was proposing an 80-foot front setback. So zoning permit was denied based on that reason. Now, the applicant claims that unnecessary hardship would result from the strict application of the ordinance and therefore seeks relief from the build-to line requirement. The applicant makes 3 arguments. Number 1, that the property has to be served by a septic system. They have no city sewer option. Number 2, due to the poor soil conditions, the septic drain field can only be in the front of the lot where the most suitable soils were found. And number 3, the site plan layout, that's the home and septic and everything, cannot be reconfigured. Otherwise, the lot becomes unbuildable. If we were to force them and say, no, we're not going to approve this unless you put the house towards the front, well, they can't put a septic, therefore they can't develop. Now, these claims are supported by subject matter experts, particularly Larry Thompson. He's a licensed soil scientist, and he's the one that tested the soil and designed the septic layout and made all the septic recommendations. Here's a image of that site and septic system layout. You can see the building footprint is marked in red. Now, the area that you see hatched in purple, that represents the septic drain field. The septic drain field is a component of the septic system, and it's being shown here in the front. So that gives us a sense of what this applicant is constricted by. There's the drain field. Now, if you see those green dots, there's 3 soil samples that were taken from the site. And so that's how they were able to determine the soil composition and where is the ideal location for a septic drain field. So the front area is the only area that can support a septic drain field. We verified this because we're not experts in the field of septic systems. The report that you saw on the staff report with all the technical soil data, we don't know how to interpret that. So we had Union County Environmental Health help us out and interpret all those things, and they were able to verify everything. So the consistency with the UDO, it's an important element that we all have to think about. The build-to line standard is a design standard. The purpose is to promote aesthetically pleasing development, orderly and uniform pattern of development. And so the proposed variance deviates from this goal. We gotta be honest. However, the minimum setback standards is a safety standard. And the purpose is to secure functional benefits such as space for utilities, emergency responders, green space, more privacy. And so we also have to admit that the proposed variance maintains minimum distance from neighboring properties. If we try to measure the degree of deviation, we see that it's deviating 35 feet. What about consistency with the comprehensive plan? So the land use and housing objectives of the comp plan in section 2.3, there's 3 in particular that are interest for us. Objective number 3 is to improve existing neighborhoods. That's one of the goals or objectives. Number 5, ensure attractive land development. And number 6, encourage investment in the community. So there we have mixed findings also with this proposed variance. The result will be an unconventional pattern of development because you will have that house set back more than the other homes that exist. But at the same time, it results in continued development and investment in that neighborhood. So there's mixed findings when we look at the consistency with the UDO and the comp plan. So in summary, the applicant seeks relief from the build-to line standard to build house towards rear of site. Subject property suffers from poor soil conditions, requiring the septic drain field installed in the front. And while design standards may not be met, minimum safety standards and comprehensive town goals are promoted. Now let's talk about the criteria of variance approval. The board has to ensure that the variance request meets all 5 of these. You know them, you've seen them in the staff report, but for the benefit of those here, first criteria is that unnecessary hardship would result from the strict application of the ordinance. The hardship results from conditions that are peculiar to the property. That's condition number 2. Criteria number 3, hardship did not result from actions taken by the applicant or property owner. Number 4, the variance is consistent with spirit, purpose, and intent of the ordinance. And number 5, the variance does not result in the creation or extension of a nonconforming violation. Those are the criteria for variance approval. Now, here's our opinion, our recommendation, is that the variance application does meet the 5 required findings of fact, and we recommend the following conditions be tied to the approval. The number 1 is that the applicant needs to install protective features. That could be landscaping or fencing within the private property and around the septic system drain field. The purpose of that is simply to protect that area and not allow any heavy machinery to drive over that area and damage that sensitive equipment. Condition number 2, the applicant must submit revised plans showing the proposed locations and specifications of the landscaping elements. That way our planning techs, when they get their second round of review, they can ensure that these are being put in place. And number 3, the applicant has to show, once they're done with their construction, in their final as-built property survey, the locations of the septic system components. We ask that that be included in that survey. So we have 2 requested actions for you. The first one, after the board deliberates on whether this application meets the 5 standards of approval and why or why not, the first motion is determining the findings of fact. And then the second requested action is the motion to approve or deny. To simplify it, we've split it up into 2. That finishes my presentation. If you have any questions, I'm here. The applicant is also here for that portion of the meeting.
Thank you. I have one question for you. It looks like in the neighborhood, there's already one property that, if we have a precedence where there is something that's set back, is there a need to approve it? Look at the last property down on Pickens Circle.
Mm-hmm. Right there at the intersection, yep, there's,
You've got a driveway that comes in here and it's already set back.
correct.
So,
And I can explain a little bit more about why you see those in Pickett Circle. So some of these homes were, it's just a matter of when it was constructed and what regulations were in place at that time. There's a lot of factors that we are unknown. So could the septic system also play a factor in where those homes had to be placed? Could be. What were the regulations at that time for septic systems or for setbacks, right? All those things can play a factor, and if you see an older home or a home set back that far, Most likely, it's just a matter of when it was constructed and what regulations played a role in that decision. Others, for example, the homes that are right across Pickett Circle, across the subject property, you'll notice that they are also set back deeper into those lots.
Significantly more, yeah.
Significantly more. But then if you study and draw a build-to line across those homes, well, you see that consistency where they're all set back towards the rear of those lots. If there is a new home that's proposed in that area, planning would, through this standard, require that they build consistently with the existing homes. So if the existing homes are set back 80 feet from the front property line, that's where the new home needs to be. So it's consistent. So that's where you will see that. I hope that explains.
Yeah. It does. Does the board have any other questions?
Yeah, I
For
have,
staff?
on the conditions. In regards to the fencing, it would seem that when you talk about the consistency, I drove through there, no one else has any kind of fencing that I
Right.
remember in the front of the yard. So it seemed that would be in difference to your consistency rule. And then the second thing about that is, I would be foolish if I was the owner to allow heavy equipment on that property. So it's kind of a self-policing thing, and if they did allow it for whatever crazy reason, they would only be hurting themselves because they would do damage and then have to fix it. I don't think it's an issue with, if there was damage, it impacting other properties.
Right.
So I don't really personally see a need for that kind of condition
Sure.
for those two reasons.
So I'll answer the first question about the fencing. We did think about that. It's true, not a lot of properties there have fencing, but we did find one. It's further, let's see, south on Pickett Circle, 135 Pickett Circle, and that one does have a split rail fence. So not a lot in there, but there are some fencing that you see there. Now, about this condition about adding these protective features, you're right, it is a self-policing thing. They need to, the property owners need to be aware of how to manage their own septic system and not do anything to damage it. But the town is also interested in protecting that investment, right? So putting that there is going to ensure that regardless of whether it changes ownership, there's something there to highlight that there's a septic system there. Sometimes when a new property owner moves in, sometimes they don't know where it is. So this is going to help them know, like, okay, this area is, there's a fence there for a reason. There's, yeah. So,
Could
Thank you.
additional screening be placed along the property line to buffer the new house looking at the back door of existing homes?
I'm glad you brought that up. So going back to this picture, the left side garage, remember we mentioned that the proposed front setback for the new home is 80 feet?
Right.
That would put it almost in line with this accessory structure. On the other side, this is the left side. Here's the right side neighbor, and you can see off the left corner of that photo, there's also an accessory structure there, which is also set back about 80 to 85 feet. So the reason staff didn't recommend fencing or screening on those sides is because those accessory structures are going to be doing that work. They're going to be providing some screening from those neighbors enjoying their backyards on the other sides. But that was our recommendation. This board can make recommendations for other conditions.
So it is a possibility to put a buffer along the property line?
Like a fence or?
Well, not necessarily
lands-
fence, something to buffer, I mean, you're putting a new house in there, and he's looking at the back door of somebody else's house. And
You can make that recommendation if the board agrees to that.
Does the applicant wish to present testimony? If there are no other questions for staff. Thank you. Please state your name and your address.
Linda Fregoso. Well, Mr. Peña kind of covered everything. If we were able to stay within the setbacks, we would gladly do it, but it's just because of the septic. That's the only reason we have to put it a little bit towards the back. And any conditions he spoke about, we're willing to follow all of them to be able to build the beautiful home we want to build there. So, yeah, I was going to keep it brief. He covered everything, so if you have any questions,
Does the
hopefully I
board
can
have
answer.
any questions for the applicant?
I guess, so you've already purchased the property, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Mhm.
When you purchased it, did you get it perked? I mean, were you aware of the septic problem at that time?
Not that we had to, like, make them line up. I wasn't aware of that. No, I was not aware of that.
Were you aware of the,
I knew it was gonna be a
build line?
septic. No, I was not.
Is it usual that a septic system is in front of the house as opposed to behind it?
Yes.
I can answer that. I'm in the real estate business, and it depends upon the land and how it perks and where the soil density. We happen to live in a house in Indian Trail where the septic is in the front of the house, because that's where it had to be, and we had to build behind the
Soil,
line.
yes.
Mhm.
Okay.
I'd like to add also that this standard is fairly new, and so it is catching some applicants by surprise.
Definitely.
Any other questions for the applicant?
I don't know whether it's more for applicant or for the staff, but in times where capacity has been reached, it's been years since I've had a septic system, and it needs attention, is there concern about the fact that it's in the front of the house instead of behind, where some of us typically think it is?
So let me see if I understand the question. If the septic system reaches its like full expectancy of use, unfortunately, I can't answer that question
Fair.
because it comes to, septic
Maintenance.
maintenance
Yeah.
and things like that.
For you. So Union County Environmental Health would regulate that. I will say that just depending, like Chair Wiley mentioned, just depending on the lay of the land, it's actually very typical for the septic to be in the front yard.
We've lived in our house for 30 years and have had as many as 5 when the kids were all there. And the maintenance is every 7 to 10 years, a tank is pumped. But we've never added an addition that required another septic tank. If there were an additional, structure built, you would just apply for a application to increase it, but that's.
I'd like to also add the type of septic system that they're installing is one of the more modern systems, pretty pricey, but it is designed without getting into the weeds of the soil report. But when the soils are so bad, they need to install a very sophisticated system. So,
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Do any of the board members have any objections to any evidence or anything presented so far? Or any further questions? At this point, I think we've heard enough evidence. Oh, would you like to come forward and state your name?
I would. I lived in the house to the left.
Do we need to swear her in? Yes.
Yes.
State your name, please.
My name's Deborah Presley. I live in the greenhouse to the left.
Hang on, I have to
One moment.
swear in.
Okay, just a second, we
Yep.
have to swear you in.
Yep.
Okay.
you the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do. We've been in the house to the left for 39 years. The lot that they purchased has had septic issues for the last 38 years. It was not approved for a septic tank until last year. No one could build on it prior to. I would have purchased the lot, but the owner at the time wanted $50,000 for it. And so it just was not in my price range. I've had health issues, so I had other concerns. But I can attest to the fact, don't take my word for it, look at Union County records, it could not be approved, and that's why it has taken so long for a house to be considered for this lot. My concerns is not having new neighbors. My concern is not the house being at the back, but because the soil is so poor and they have to have such an extensive septic tank, one of my concerns is I have moderate persistent asthma. So I wonder how the digging is going to affect my health. So that's just a concern. One of my other concerns is they have a tree leaning on the left side. If you go back to the pictures, when they cleared off the lot, they didn't take down the tree to the left. So I just want to make it a matter of record. I don't know if it's dead or not, but there's a tree back there that right now it looks dead, but it may not be. But it's leaning to the left of my fence. So it's like when you took all these other trees down, why would you not take the leaning tree down? If they did do a privacy fence, I would like to see it on my side. I can't speak for the other neighbor because he didn't show up tonight, so that's on him. But I would like to see a privacy fence just for whoever buys the home and lives there, as well as myself, because we all like privacy in our homes. My other concern and my biggest concern that I really wanted to bring to you guys, we've lived out there for 39 years this past January. I love my home. I love Indian Trail. We've had a lot of growth in our area. We remember when we were in the country and nobody wanted us, and now we're in city limits. My big concern, and this would actually eliminate their problem, why can't we get sewer in our neighborhood? All these businesses around us, where the movies, the Harris Teeter, and we have a gas station that I didn't know about due to my health issues, or I would have I would have complained about that one. But we have all these homes, Brandon Oaks, where our planner lives. Everybody has sewer. They built the new townhomes up above us, across from Radiator Specialty. They have sewer. Why can we not have sewer? When I was annexed to Indian Trail, I pay Union County taxes. I pay city taxes. My home is modest, but I pay my taxes. And my concern is, I called Union County for this reason, and I've called them twice, and they'll transfer me wherever, and they don't return my calls. But my thing is if you allowed sewer to be in our neighborhood as it is in all the other surrounding neighborhoods and businesses, they wouldn't have a problem. They could put the home where they wanted it.
I'm going to stop you right there just to let you know, this board and the purpose of this hearing is evidentiary.
Right. But I mean, to me, that's a concern. And
Right.
while this can't be resolved here, I would just like for it to be a part of the record.
Understood.
Why can it not? I recognize you can't do it. It's to hear what's going on. For me right now, I take 5 medicines for asthma. My breathing is a concern. And last year I had pneumonia and sepsis. And so it's been worse since then. And I had a pulmonary embolism in 2019 that I almost died. So my breathing is a concern. So to me, for the type of septic tank, and to get to your point for what this hearing is for, that land has not perked for 38 years. They would not approve it for 38 years because we've lived there 39 years and we've kept up with it. And we've known people that have been turned away or would not buy it because of that. So my thing is, for the size of the septic tank, how much digging do they have to do? Am I going to be seeing my pulmonologist sooner than later?
Madam Chair, if you don't mind, I would like to briefly address the sewer issue.
Thank you.
Sewer infrastructure is put in by the developer. So part of the reason why this area doesn't have sewer is because of the cost to the individual owner. So extending the lines as far as they would have to be extended, it just doesn't, the numbers just don't work for one or two houses or the density that's over in that area. So,
But
so
there
all
are
of
several
the,
people that would.
all of the, you know, I would encourage you to contact Union County Public Works and see if you could get an estimate on what that cost is.
I can contact them again, but as I stated, I've called them twice
If you're,
in the
if you're
last year.
willing to split the cost, but it is on the, you know, the homeowner or the developer. So all those areas you mentioned, that was paid for by the developer to
Right.
extend
And
those
I
lines.
recognize I would have to upfront some money.
Yeah,
I
so
do
the
rec-
other thing I want to address real quickly is, when there is, site work being done on site, we do try very hard to police that. So if there's dust and that kind of thing, we require a water truck on site. So please stay in close contact with us. If that becomes a concern, we will send someone out immediately for that.
Right, I mean, I'm not concerned about having neighbors. I don't care where they put the house. I mean, the more neighbors, the merrier. I'm a sociable person. That's not my problem. My problem is like I said, A, my health, and B, which we know we can address it here, but why can't we have a sewer system? And I just would like for it to be in record since Union County did not return my calls 2 times. And I'm not anyone that's real important, but I do live in this neighborhood, I do pay my taxes, and I just wanted to make it a record.
Thank you very much for
Thank
speaking.
you
Thank
for
you
your
for your time.
comments. We appreciate you being here. All right, if there are no other additional presentation of relevant facts, I'm going to ask the board to stick to the facts that were presented by the experts here and by staff and the application before us as we go into deliberation. Any other questions or any thoughts from any of the board members on what has been presented? I guess I'll start by sharing my thoughts in deliberation. It appears to me that all 5 of the standards have been met for this hardship case. I believe the septic, as you mentioned, Jose Pena, staff member, they're putting in a extensive system, and the health department also has their checks and balances that would have to make sure it meets safety standards. Does anyone else have any thoughts, concerns as we deliberate before we make a motion?
I just-
I agree that all of the requirements have been met, and the hardship definitely did not result from the property owner's actions. And it does not appear, because of the specificity of the septic system requirement, that it's not going to result in a non-conforming violation with other locations. So I also say everything is true. Everybody has to speak, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep, share their thoughts on this. That's kind of the part of the deliberation process.
I just want to note that in our material here, there were 2 other cases here. One was denied because the applicant had the ability to cure the problem. The other one was like we have here, and I know that I don't think we can depend on precedent. It was a case very, very similar that was approved.
Yeah, there's no other options available in this case, so, I mean, the soil and the location and what is viable determines that this is the only location for that, so that creates the hardship.
There was also something in the report about the overhead electric lines, I think, in the back. So the equipment can only go in a certain location, not the septic field, but whatever the equipment was in the back. So that had to go in a specific area as well.
Madam Chairman, I understand this is a hardship on families, but I mean, they should have looked this up a little bit earlier, and no matter which way it goes, I would definitely like to see some buffer planted along the, not just a fence or something put along that property line, because the neighbors on either side wouldn't want them looking out the front door and seeing the back of their house and vice versa. So no matter which way it goes, I think that should be included in it, so.
The rest of the board's covered the majority of the issues. I think that leaves me, that's the hazard of going last. But the variance also does not put the property within the setbacks, which was another thing that I was thinking about as we started reviewing the documents.
Is there a motion to approve or approve with conditions or deny this request? And if so, please include your rationale for the motion.
I just have
Well,
a question. In the rationale, can it be just a reference to an agreement with the staff's positions?
Yes, I believe it can be.
Yeah, so your
First
Well,
vote.
the second requested action gets into how you make that motion to approve or deny, and I believe you have the option of going with as presented, right? As with our recommendations. If the board wants to recommend additional conditions, you can, or the motion to deny.
So I make a motion for requested action number 1. Motion to find that variance 2024-0129 for 215 Pickett Circle meets all 5 standards of unnecessary hardship because of the site conditions, the overhead electric lines, the soil is not suitable in the back. The hardship results from the conditions and is unique to the property, and it did not result from the property owner's actions. The request is consistent with the spirit of town ordinance, UDO, section 1310.010, and the comprehensive plan 2.3, and in it, as presented, it will not result or extend in a non-conforming violation.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And the second action, do we have a motion?
Motion to approve variance 2024-0089, 215 Pickett Circle as presented with conditions recommended by staff.
Do I have a second?
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
This motion carries. Thank you, everyone, for attending the hearing. Staff will draft the final written decision to reflect the vote and reasoning for this decision. That written decision will be provided to the applicant and to other parties with the right to such notice, and parties have 30 days to appeal this decision. We welcome you to stay if you'd like to speak with us afterwards, but thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful evening.